everyone, and welcome to the Catalyst for Change. We are thrilled that you are with us today. My name is Lisa Rowe, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the CEO for Support After Abortion. Support After Abortion exists to end the demand for abortion by healing men and women who've been impacted by abortion. And I can't think of a better person to share with you this week than my dear friend, Dell Anderson. Her story is going to impact you. It is going to move you, and it's going to enlighten you to some of the places that men and women who've experienced abortion travel. So I'm very thrilled that you're here with us. If her story touches you and maybe opens a door or a window to a previous experience, we want to let you know that Support After Abortion is here to help you. Visit us at supportafterabortion.com. Click the Contact Us link at the top of the page, and one of our amazing advocates will be in touch with you to help walk this journey out with you. Excuse me. Without further ado, please welcome Dell. Dell, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for the opportunity to share my story. I believe that there are people out there today that will glean from some of the things that I've been through and become unchained themselves from the shackles of the past.
Amen, sister. Well, let's talk a little bit about the shackles of the past, because we know that no woman wakes up and says, I'm going to have an abortion today, or dreams of the day that she's going to have an abortion. So would you invite our audience into maybe some of your story from your past and those shackles into what led you to your abortion experience?
Yes, of course. My life started out pretty difficult from a very early age. My father was an invalid, and I was his caretaker as an only child. He died when I was 15, and I was in a hurry to get away from home. I wanted that experience, that happy family, and I sought it with all my heart. I was not a Christian at the time, and my husband, my first husband, when we got married when I was about almost 18, and he immediately went to Vietnam. He came back with severe PTSD. I got pregnant, and he took off across the country, leaving me with a small child to raise. So I moved to the big city, and soon I met a young man that I thought was my knight in shining armor, who was going to be a good father to my child. And after about a year and a half, he asked me to marry him, and I eagerly accepted. Unfortunately, what I thought was my knight in shining armor was a psychopath. And on the night we married, the night of our honeymoon, he beat me almost to death and left me in a ditch in Miami Beach. For the next 3 years, I ran and tried to flee from him. But each time he would find me, and there were times he would lock me in the closet. He beat me unmercifully, left me for dead many, many, many times. It was horrific abuse. Finally, through the help of my best friend, actually, I was able to eliminate him from my life by getting a divorce. He still stalked me and did horrible things, but eventually it stopped. I got on my feet. I was wounded, broken. He had called me every name in the books and belittled me in every way that he could. I was just a mess, complete mess. But I started getting back on my feet. I got a really good job. I was always able to convince people that I could do most anything. And I landed a great job, became a district manager of a big insurance company, making lots of money. And my job was to hire and train people. And I hired a young man who was recently back from Vietnam and needed a break, and I hired him. He was extremely good looking, and he wanted to get married. And I thought, I'm not very good at this marriage game here, but he was very convincing, and his charm was undeniable. So after a lot of wooing and thinking about it, I thought, how could it be any worse than the other two? So I agreed to marry him. We went on our honeymoon in Spain and came back, and not long afterwards, we accepted Christ. We started going to church, and I thought, well, this is it, Lisa. I thought this was the missing link. This was what I had been missing. I wanted a marriage that was wonderful, and a house in the suburbs with a picket fence and children and pets. And I wanted all those things. And I thought I had found it. We were at church every time the doors open. I even sang in the choir, and I can't sing a note. So it was a great time. And we decided that everything was going so well, we wanted to expand our family. So I got pregnant, and I was in my 24th week of pregnancy. And one night he called me and said, I'm going to be late for dinner. He said, just put something up for me. Well, he had become a model, and he was doing a photo shoot at a spa. And I thought, I've been a 2-time loser already, and I want to be the best wife I can be. So I've made him his favorite dinner, and I'll just take it to him. And I went in the back door, the place was closed, and found him in a sexual encounter with another woman. At that moment, Lisa, my world crumbled. I thought, how can this be happening? What's wrong with me? Am I so unlovable that I cannot have a happy life? I wanted to die. I absolutely thought I have nothing left to live for. And I thought about, how can I already have a child from my first marriage. This child would be better off without me. And so I went out that night, got drunk, just trying to drown my sorrows. And I thought, the only thing that I can do is have an abortion, because what good am I anyway? This child would be better off without me. I'm no good. I'm unlovable. Every man in my life had crushed me, beginning with my father, my first husband, my second husband, and now a third husband. And I mean, what is it about me? I had no self-esteem, nothing. I thought that now even God himself had abandoned me, because I thought I had the answer when I gave my heart to the Lord. So the next day I went to an abortion clinic, and I will never forget the horror of the whole experience. They were cold and uncaring. And he said, well, I can give you an abortion, but it won't be easy because you're in your second trimester, and it's not going to be a good thing. So I went in, and the type of abortion I had was a saline injection into my womb. And I had to physically give birth. It was the kind of pain, unimaginable pain. And it was the kind of pain that you can only forget at hearing your baby's first cry. But I would never hear that cry. I gave birth to a tiny, tiny little baby girl. And if I hadn't been suicidal before, I was surely suicidal now. After it was over, I hid in the closet at the clinic, just so ashamed that I couldn't even, I didn't want anybody to look at me. I just cowered in the closet. I left that day. I went home. I went in my bedroom and I took a razor blade and I cut a tiny, tiny little slit in my wrist. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I wasn't thinking straight. I just wanted to die. I wanted to sleep. I wanted to forget all those things because I felt there was no hope for me in any way, what shape, form, or fashion. And I was a mess. I was a complete mess.
Dell, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so sorry for your loss and for the journey that you were on from such a young age. And I have spoken to so many women throughout my journey that can relate to a lot of the pieces of your story, you know, the lack of foundation and knowing what a healthy man looks like, and the need to rescue and fix because that's what your dad taught you to do because of his illness. And then for you to move through these other relationships that mimicked a lot of your childhood.
Totally.
We don't see the red flags when we weren't shown them early on. And so a lot of times I tell women that an abortion experience, a domestic violence experience, substance abuse experience is the natural path until we find healing, till the Lord rescues our soul, till we surrender our life to him, that we can find a different way, that we can be invited into a different journey. And so I really appreciate that you have shared that because it's not uncommon. What is unique to your story is your abortion experience in terms of how it took place. And we know that chemical abortion is happening more and more frequently, and women are now giving birth to their babies in their toilet or in their shower all by themselves. That does seem very kind of connected to what you've experienced. Will you maybe share a little bit more about what that was like for you in terms of the physiological, you know, nature of your body, going through pregnancy and then delivery, and then the afterwards? How did you recover from that?
By the embrace of the grace of God.
Yeah.
It was horrific. I mean, I was very, very ill afterwards. And just the whole going through the labor process and then seeing my lifeless baby lying there. It was just horrible. And I've had people say, where was God in all of this? You know, I was so broken that I couldn't even reach out to God. But what I did find out is that even in that closet, when I was in that hospital room, he was there. He was there with me. And his tears flowed in unison with mine. And I thought I would never, ever, ever recover from that visual of that tiny little baby. Every time I would look in the mirror, I thought, you're just a monster. But I got back in church and the healing began to take place, going back and rededicating my life to the Lord. And eventually, Lisa, everything that I had hoped and prayed for came to fruition. When I made God my partner, and I thought it was hopeless, that I would never have a husband, God brought a gift to me in the form of a man named Dell Anderson. who, when I told him all of the horrific things I had been through, he said, "It's too late. I love you. And God has sent me into your life to undo those ugly things that happened to you. And if it takes the rest of my life, I'm going to show you that I'm not like them." We got married several years later, and we were ecstatically happy. I had another 2 children. We've been married 45 years to date. And I was gloriously happy. But Lisa, I had no joy because I still had that image of that little tiny baby lying there in a pool of blood. And I prayed and I prayed to forget those things. And one night, a miracle happened. I went to a church service where I had heard the Lord fill people with joy there. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that real joy. And when I went, everybody seemed to be getting it but me. And I was leaving very disappointed. There were thousands of people there. And as I was leaving, I came in contact with some old friends that had been in the ministry for many years. And we were just standing there chatting. And Lisa, suddenly the Holy Spirit fell upon me. And I fell to the ground. And in that moment, the Lord transported me to heaven. And as he did, I saw Christ sitting on a rock. And he was laughing, holding his tummy. He would go back and forward. He would look at me and just laugh. And I thought, what is he laughing at? And soon it was like a fog. It began to dissipate to the left. And as it did, I saw this little girl dancing at the feet of Jesus. She turned and looked at me. And as she did, our eyes met, and I immediately recognized her as my daughter. And I said, "Oh, just let me touch her. Please, God, just let me touch her." And she turned to Jesus and she tugged on his garment and said, "Lord," she said, "look, Mommy's laughing." And he said, "I know. Isn't that wonderful?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And I knew at that moment that there truly would be no tears in heaven. And when I saw my daughter, she would run to me and embrace me. And the Lord looked at me and he pointed and he said, "From this day forward, no longer will you minister out of your pain, but you will minister out of your joy." And that was when my real healing took place.
Wow. It's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
The experience that you can have, that women have, and like you're sharing, of being invited into a relationship with a baby that you felt you weren't privileged. You were invited in that moment to say, "I am a mom and I am your mom, and together we will live in eternity." Oh, what a beautiful story, Dell. And your story doesn't stop there, because just recently you went through a healing group with a team down in Fort Myers or in Naples. Would you
Yes.
share a little bit about that with our audience?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was a little arrogant about it because I thought I'm already healed. I don't need to be healed. And as we got into it, I mean, it was so amazing. And there was one particular night that they started talking about the pain that the babies feel with an abortion, when an abortion takes place at a certain point in the in the gestation period. And I had surpassed that time when I had my abortion. And I was so broken. And it was a part of the healing that needed to take place. And I didn't even realize it. I didn't even know it. And I think many women are that way. They think they're healed, but they're not. But this group of women was so loving, so wonderful in the teaching. It took me back. I had to relive a lot of that pain, but I knew in my heart I was forgiven. And I knew it was just that extra step in the healing process that I'm so thrilled that I did it. And if there's anybody out there that was like me, and I'm ashamed that I was a bit arrogant, "Oh, I don't need that, I'm already healed." But I did need it. And it came at a wonderful time. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful y'all just encouraged me to do that, because I don't think I would have ever done it, because I thought I had it made, you know.
Yes. And what I remember being the prompting of all of this is,
Yeah,
Dell, when I
me
said,
too.
"Did you name your daughter?" And you said, "No, actually I hadn't." And I said, "Well, there's a really cool opportunity that comes through abortion healing with creating a ceremony or a celebration of life where you name your child and you have a proper burial and all of these experiences, closure that we don't always get with these abortion experiences that we walk through." So did you name your daughter?
I did.
And what
I
is her
thought
name?
it was only fitting that I name her Joy,
Oh,
because I received real joy after that. And
wow.
it I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful that you encouraged me gently. You weren't demanding or anything. You just gently encouraged me to do that, to get that closure that I thought I already had, but I didn't. You were the catalyst for change for me. And I
Oh, I,
that.
I have chills all over. And I just want to speak to that for a minute because, there are some people in our lives that maybe we're afraid to have another conversation with them. We're afraid to ask that next question. But what you're saying, Dell, is that we had established a relationship. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months until we had this conversation. You had served as a speaker at one of our conferences. I had watched your documentary. We had shared a little bit about our families together before COVID. We were trying to connect with each other. Um, and so it wasn't right away. There was a relationship established. And when I did bring that up, it was, you were open to it because it wasn't about this, like, you should do something. It was a
Right,
suggestion.
exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
I probably would not have responded well to that, but you did it exactly right.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Catalyst for Change show. As Dell shared her journey, many of you, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, might be able to relate, might be able to connect some of your own experiences. We know that abortion is a symptom of deeper roots. And at Support After Abortion, we understand that. Our team is ready and waiting to connect with you if you feel like it's your time to start that journey, to enter into deeper healing, as Dell mentioned. So join us on our website, supportafterabortion.com. We have virtual healing groups called Unraveled Roots, other abortion healing opportunities. We will refer you to a group in your community. Supportafterabortion.com. Contact us.